I tried to make a horror game in 24 hours. Here's how it went. My idea for the game is that you have to sneak around a maze and look for items, but you also have to monitor the activity level of the monster, and when it gets too high, he becomes extremely dangerous and you have to retreat to safety. This was sort of inspired by the Living Walls mode in It Steals. Other than that, I didn't really have any idea of what the game would be like, so I spent a long time rigorously planning what would need to be done. Just kidding, I just started the timer and started doing stuff. After putting on some bangers, the first thing I did was draw a pixel art map and copy that over to Godot, the game engine I use. Then I added a floor and a basic player who can walk around. I added a brick texture to the walls, and yeah, the game was pretty much finished at that point. Seriously though, I wanted this to be a PS1 style game, not because I don't know how to make hyper-realistic graphics. You gotta believe me, man. So I put a pixel filter on the camera and that was that. Since this is a horror game, the next step was to make it scary. So I made it dark, gave the player a light, and flooded the map with fog. I also added a real floor, since I feel like most horror games tend to have floors of some sort. Since I was so short on time, I quickly moved on to the next task. No, I didn't. I spent like the next 20 minutes tweaking the fog, and of course I ended up just leaving it the way it was. Hindsight is 20/20, I guess. Next up, I wanted to make the inside of the maze look a little less empty. So I started doing some deep research. I quickly realized there was no way to make my game look like this, but I did add some lanterns that hang from high above, shrouded in fog, which I thought was a cool effect. For some reason, trying to adjust the lantern light kept making the lighting gods angry and causing this weird glitch, but I was eventually able to work around it. I wanted the player to have an area where they knew they would be safe. You would think this would lower the intensity of the game, but I actually think that it's better to have a balance of scary and unscary moments, as it makes the scary ones stand out more. Anyways, I gave the player a little stronghold and added these big metal doors that you can open and close with a lever. Shout out to my man Kenny for the lever asset, as well as some of the assets I'll use later in this video. Next, I decided it was time to add the monster. I decided to try sculpting in Blender for the first time, and after accidentally making the monster a Giga Chad, I ended up with a model I was pretty happy with. I also gave him some sticking out ribs to make him look emaciated. I went on to Mixamo.com and gave him some basic animations, as well as smoothing out a few more details on the model.
Double cheeked up on a Thursday afternoon.
My idea for this monster was that his texture would be a fleshy, spongy surface full of holes. He has no eyes, mouth, or other features, only fleshy sores. After I fixed some issues with the UV mapping, I think this ended up looking pretty good. I dropped him into the game and realized he was way too big, but that wasn't too hard to fix. The next step should have been to give the monster AI and make him stalk around and chase you and all that good stuff, but I really didn't want to do this and procrastinated it for a long time. Instead, I worked on some different items the player can hold: the flashlight, the activity meter, which tracks how dangerous the monster currently is, and the map, which you need to navigate the maze. After adding these in and letting the player switch between them, I removed some of the lanterns from the player's base because it was just too bright. I later ended up removing all of them and instead just making a soft light on the interior with no visible source. Also, the monster now follows you wherever you go, but he can't jump scare you yet, and he's far from intelligent.
Hello guys, welcome to my stream.
I put some doors around the map that the player can open and close to get between rooms. If the monster attempts to walk through a closed door, he simply slams it open as if it wasn't even there. Scary. I wanted to give the monster actual AI now, with activity that fluctuates up and down and varying levels of intelligence to reflect it. I messed around with this for a while, but the way I ended up doing it is this. Monster activity starts at 1 and slowly climbs to 5, reflected by the meter. After being at 5 for a while, it drops back to 1. When activity is at 1, the monster is not on the map. When activity is 2, the monster wanders between 2 corners. When activity is 3, the monster wanders between all the corners. When activity is 4, the monster wanders the whole map. When activity is 5, the monster knows where you are at all times and comes straight for you. When the monster sees you, it will scream at you and start a chase. Wait, hold on a second. When the monster sees you, it will scream at you and start a chase and run after you until either it catches or loses sight of you. If it loses sight, it goes back to wandering, and if it catches you, nothing happens because I didn't add the jump scare yet. We'll get back to that. Oh, also the monster gets faster the higher the activity is, to the point of being impossible to outrun once it gets to 5. If you're not in the stronghold by then, you're toast. All this took a few hours to get right, so I quickly moved on to the next step, adding the items you have to find. I modeled 5 ancient totems and put them around the map so that the player can bring them back to the base and put them on this fancy totem rack. After getting that figured out, I decided it was time to populate the maze a little bit. Currently, there's only you, the monster, and the totems, which are just floating in the air. We need some decorations. Time was running out, so I got started on this as quickly as possible. Just kidding, I spent another half hour tweaking the fog, and this time I actually did make it look a lot better, so it was worth it. Moving on to decoration, I was pretty worried about 3D modeling enough items to fill the entire crypt. Luckily, I found some old models from an abandoned project I was making 1 or 2 years ago, and I figured I could use those. Hey, it's not cheating. If other game developers can use asset packs, I can use assets that I actually made. Anyways, I spent several hours decorating the entire maze with these, and hid the totems around the map. I also made the interior of the stronghold look more different from the rest of the map by adding this board texture. At this point, I managed to actually jump scare myself by somehow making the monster way bigger and not realizing until I witnessed it in game. After I recovered from that, I made some tweaks to the decorations and added in some more Egyptian PNGs on the wall. Next, I added a brief tutorial in the form of several posters in the stronghold. They just tell you to gather totems, use your items, and return to the stronghold when activity gets too high. One of the posters says that the monster can hear you when you sprint, but that's actually a lie. I forgot to add that. But I kept the poster up because it encourages players not to run everywhere.
We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
I also thought the interior needed a little something to make it feel more homey, so I threw up a quick Mona Lisa to really give that feeling of coziness. This room was looking pretty empty, so I put my Kenny assets to good use and spent an hour or two creating a feast. Maybe not the best use of my precious development time, but hey, a game developer's gotta have some fun. Time was running out and the monster still didn't have a jump scare, so it was time to add one. I reused the screaming animation and made the camera follow the monster's head, as well as spawning in a red light. After a few failed attempts, I got this looking pretty good. So I added a game over screen that fades in after you die, as well as a victory screen when you collect all 5 totems. A silent jump scare is not going to scare anybody, so I decided it was time to bite the bullet and add sound effects and music. I added safe ambience for when you're in the base, scary ambience for when you're wandering the crypt, chase music, and sounds for picking up totems, opening doors, etc. As for the monster, I wanted him to have a really weird breath sound, like he's breathing through all his holes at once and they're all making different noises, so I turned on my microphone and got freaky. After adjusting and layering all these sounds, what I ended up with was really gross and uncomfortable, which is to say, perfect. I made a more intense one for when the monster is chasing you, as well as a scream for when he sees you. My family was in the room right next to me when I recorded this, and I know they were freaked out. I really didn't want to try to make a jump scare sound with my mouth, and finding a good scream sound effect was harder than I thought it would be. I did eventually find one, and with that plus all the other sound effects, this was starting to feel like a finished game. Which is good because I was almost out of time. I threw together a quick title screen and decided to name the game Crypt, because you're in a crypt. I also made the items you're holding shake slightly when you run, which adds to the game feel immensely.
Oh, beautiful.
An unexpected but welcome side effect of this was that you can't see the map very well when you're walking or running, so you have to stop moving to get your bearings. Another last minute thing I did was make the monster bang on the door when he's trying to get in. I had about an hour left and I decided to lock in and add one last feature I had been thinking about, map upgrades. The map felt a little boring to use and I wanted there to be some more things you could find in the crypt besides just the totems. So I added 4 map upgrades you can find. I know they look like dog water, don't at me. The arrow, which shows you what direction you're pointing. The radar, which sometimes reveals the monster's position. The path, which shows you where you've been. And steady, which stops the map from joggling so you can use it while you walk and run. I have to confess I did go a little bit over the deadline while making these, mainly because the path refused to work properly at first. My time was up and I let my brother play the game. Surprise, surprise, he promptly discovered a bunch of bugs. Here I had kind of a moral dilemma. Should I stick to the deadline and leave the game in a somewhat broken state, or just suck it up and finish it despite the time limit? I decided to ignore the timer and fix the bugs because I felt like leaving the game in an objectively worse state benefits no one. I spent about an hour doing this and then the game was done for real. So I got my homie to hop on a Discord call and play it.
I'm getting a little freaked out. I like the art. I like the pixel art so far.
Thanks.
Oh, I'm freaked out. Okay, lock in. I definitely explored there. Oh! Oh my goodness, bro. Leave me alone! I'm gonna wait him out in here for a second.
A few moments later.
Well, actually, I have a second. No, no, no! No, no! No, I missed it! Ah! Dude. Oh, shoot. Do I have to start over?
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, oh, I have plenty of time. I'm like, my heart is low-key beating like crazy. What the? No! Please leave me alone! Please, 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 please. I'm not looking back. No. Give me a flashlight. Pull it! Pull! Oh my goodness, bro. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, let's go, dude. Let's go, baby. Dude, W game.
So yeah, the game is now up on itch.io, so you can download and play it for yourself. I had a lot of fun making this video, and I'll do another one like it soon. Either making another game, or maybe if you guys really like this one, I can add more stuff to it. Like more levels, another monster, split screen, who knows, it might get crazy. Anyways, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Funky Truffle signing off.